My name is Blaze. Welcome to the Blaze interview, and this is
Haseeb, what's up?
how y'all doing? So, how did you get into comedy?
I got into comedy because I was listening to a Joey Diaz podcast and he mentioned the fourth wall open mic, and I decided,
Okay.
fuck it, I'll go.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you went to the first one was at the fourth wall.
It was the fourth wall up on Burbank Boulevard.
Yeah. How do you feel? How was your first time?
It was bad.
It was bad.
It was really bad. I didn't really have like any jokes. I didn't really understand like comedy structure at that point. So I had some ideas that maybe were funny, but I didn't really know how to write a bit yet.
Okay. So like, what goes in the writing a bit process? Like, how does a comic go through? Like, how do you go through like structuring a bit?
Well, I take it back to like very simple, just set up punchline, and then see where it goes from there. And sometimes I'll just get some tags that are funny just to say by themselves, and other times I'll have to like actually set up a scene, and it's like that's one kind of a joke where it's like set up to be like there's like a turnaround or something like that, and then the other kind, like there's more of a story to it. You know, I don't really have a lot of like very like heroic anecdotes or anything like that. You know, I don't have of like benders or like dates that went wrong or something like that, but I do have some funny moments or some like interesting moments in life where there's humor to be seen. I kind of call it like the universe or like God is trying to. He's the one who wrote this. I'm just bearing witness.
Yeah, he's the one fucking with you.
Yes,
After
exactly. God is fucking with you. That is the takeaway.
I have a story I was like to share. Is my friend's birthday, and so we go to the bar and we accidentally left his car in a towaway zone. And so he's drunk off his ass, right?
Yes.
And we're supposed to take care of him. And we get back to the car and realize the car's fucking gone. And so he's like, he's mad. He's drunk. He's getting pissed off. And I said, hey, man, just remember, wake up tomorrow. It's going to be funny. And he gets even madder. He just starts, what the fuck you, this and that. Starts cursing me out. But the next day, it was kind of funny.
Yeah, it's that... That's kind of there.
Yeah.
What I kind of like though is where I guess I'll just burn this bit so I have something to say on a podcast. But
no, you don't have to burn it. You can change it.
Well, I'll draw it out. Like I'll explain it. But like this one time, like that story that like. That is, there is humor to it.
Yeah.
That like you relied on these people to take care of you, and they miss like the one important detail of like, hey, we should actually be able to get the fuck home.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Those are like lessons.
Yeah.
And learning and growth is boring and irrelevant to me. That was supposed to be funny, but it just came out sad.
It came out wise.
It was supposed to be funny, and it just came out like this will make my mom like it will turn her smile upside down
to make her unhappy.
Yeah. Anyway, no, so yeah, that's like the kind of where I find like God is trying to like just make a joke is sometimes I'll just see things happen. Like this one time I was driving down the freeway, and next to me passes by a car, and it's a Toyota Venza, and inside the Toyota Venza there is a woman who is quite fat, not the fattest, but definitely she's
chunky.
got
She's chubby.
She's chubby, yeah. And she's driving with her knee.
Oh.
You know that move?
Yeah.
While eating while eating takeout. And then not only is she driving with her knee while eating takeout, she also has the menu of the restaurant. She's using that as a sun visor in the driver's side window.
Wow.
So I just as a spectacle, I just think that is a like a normal rock wall painting.
Yeah.
It's like that. You know that painting of the dogs like sitting around the table playing poker?
Yeah.
It's God having it's a kind of surrealism. If I'd say that, if I'd say so. You know.
The surrealism?
Yeah, it's like this is sometimes reality is shown to you in a way that like it is reality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's but like like this would be too cheesy for a movie. You know what I'm saying? Like the fat lady is driving in a fat person car. Taylor Venza's a fat person car. It's for people with bad knees. If you're under the age of 50 and you find yourself preferring a Venza, you may want to consult your doctor about your lifestyle. But if it doesn't stop there. It's that alone doesn't make the picture. What makes the picture is the eating the takeout with the menu. It's like not only do you not want to be healthy, you want to keep like basic tenets of health, like sunlight. There's the people out there that like I saw this in like video game culture a lot, which is kind of obvious, where people would just jokingly would be like, "I hate the sun," and I think that at some point that stopped becoming an ironic joke, and there's some people who like have real visceral reactions to sunlight.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people who are like just now kind of coming out of the whole like COVID thing.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of people who are still in their house, like stuck.
There's a lot of yes. Those are the people that are like, kill the sun,
kill all the germs.
Yes. And it's weird because like they don't like the germs and the sun kills the germs, but
yeah,
that's it makes life funny when there's those kinds of people around. You know what I'm saying? If there's too many people who are just like practical, who just are like, all right, we need to get something done, so let's just go get it done. Just weigh the risks and everything.
Yeah.
People need to worry about shit that does not need to be worried about to make life interesting.
Yeah, well, I'll give you I feel that because I was in a student government in both college and high school, and what happened is there's always that one person who's always about bylaws. Oh, bylaws! You always got to do everything by the book. They're very strict and poignant, and it's always like you kind of hate and love those people to a point like you just know they're gonna say something. It's like as soon as something comes up, you're gonna like ding bylaws.
Yes, exactly. You see that in the sitcom.
Yeah.
There's always, a mundane task that they were all gonna do that normal people would just be able to do, and it wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be something that you would like. Nobody would watch even 23 minutes of that one act. But then something that really never could have been completely avoided, did not need to go wrong, happens, right? You know what I'm saying? Friggin' Ray burns the brownies for the bake sale or some bullshit like that because he was watching the dog. I don't know. It's some shit happens, right? Like I kind of find it in my life a little bit where, I could just get a paycheck and then pay my bills and then save the money.
Mm-hmm.
But after I get out of work, I have to drive off somewhere and smoke weed before going home. And I feel like the added financial pressure on our family just it helps everybody stay alive. It helps everybody yearn more for life. Because if we didn't have this kind of added impetus, then our hearts wouldn't beat fast enough. Our heart rates would be too normal all the time.
Yeah.
Or something.
And
we don't have enough physical activity in our lives.
Well, some of us,
because of that.
Yeah, some people definitely have no physical activity in their lives.
Yes.
I mean, I'm lucky to have somewhat physical job, so I do get a little bit of. I'd have to stretch every day and stuff like that. But like, what do you do outside of comedy? Like, what is it that you like? What do you do for a living right now?
For a living right now, I drive. I drive for Amazon as a truck driver.
Nice.
Before I used to do large packages deliveries in the morning, and now I do. Now I deliver to like post offices.
What's that like working for Amazon?
It's.
That seems like interesting.
It is pretty interesting. It is kind of an like an old world kind of. Yes, this is like a job that requires a lot of effort, and maybe does have like nearly as much of pay
as you'd like what you're doing.
But at the same time, it's like I get why it's like so important.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Here's the thing, like the whole peeing thing.
Yeah, the bottle.
The peeing in the trucks thing. So I have peed in trucks 4 or 5 times.
Wow. Okay.
In the few months that I've worked for Amazon, but the reason is not that I'm not allowed to go to the bathroom. It's just that, first of all, I'm driving a 16 to 24 foot truck.
Yeah.
And just like parking that somewhere to go to the bathroom is
really risky.
And risky.
Yeah.
And not only that is Amazon wants you to kind of be on. They don't want you to be like really quick. They just kind of want you to be on time. And the thing is, if you take a few minutes more than like what it takes just to get to the next place, then it's. I almost appreciate it, because it's like, he's like, let me help you get clean. Normally people would be like, oh, dude, you just smell. And he's like, nah, let me help you.
She's nice.
Yes.
So what? So you can't go. It's hard to park it. But then like, not only that, like it's like you risk again, like all that shit taken.
All that shit what?
Taken.
Oh yeah, but there's locks on trucks and whatnot. But it's still. It's that you start taking like a minute or 2 minutes here and there. It's not even a lot, but over the course of I did large package deliveries, so this is only 50 or 60 stops a day.
Okay.
But especially if you're doing the smaller package deliveries, that's sometimes 200 to 300 packages or 300 stops.
Not packages. One house can have like 3-4 packages.
Yes. So you're maybe doing 200, 300 stops where you're really delivering 300 to 400 packages.
Yeah.
So a minute or 2 here or there is going to turn into, by the end of the day, for our smaller scale deliveries, an extra 30 minutes to an hour. A few minutes here and there, like,
And the customers are going to be pissed.
Stops. It's really not.
Is it that bad? Like, do you guys
customers? Well, there's this scheduled deliveries.
Yeah.
For which, if you are late, then yes, you will. Customers will get pissed because they have to pay extra for that kind of delivery.
Yeah.
But for the other thing, oh, this is another important thing. For example, for our smaller package or for our large package deliveries,
Yeah.
we start out pretty early and there's not that much traffic, and especially if we're delivering in an area that's very simple to deliver to, like Irvine.
Mm.
There's
a whole bunch of just houses and suburbs, right?
Houses and suburbs, wide streets as well. It's and not nearly as much traffic as up in LA.
Here, like NoHo, like Studio City, West Ho.
Yes, like we don't do these places anymore, but
Really,
honestly, there's other DSPs that do that. But the DSP I work at is in Buena Park. So we do LA, but we do more like Downey and LA Compton area, and that has its own challenges. And although it's flat, which is good mostly, they also have some pretty narrow streets, and it's very crowded. Very crowded, a lot of pedestrians and whatnot, a lot of cars too, and everybody's a little tense driving in LA just in general. Everybody's trying to get to places a little bit quicker than they can, I think.
Need to be.
Yes.
That's the real. They don't need to be that fast. I was like to say, when I see someone like speeding in and out of traffic, it's like, look, that motherfucker needs to take a shit.
Yeah. You can't fault them either, because you'll realize half the time that's you too.
Yeah.
When you're just trying to drive somewhere, you fucking
space out.
Yeah, it's it just is what it is. But what I was gonna say about the peeing thing, Amazon will, if you finish your route early, or our DSP at least, will pay you for the whole 8 hours of the day.
That's nice.
So a lot of drivers will actually want to finish early. And they will want to do their routes as quick as possible. And even if that's not your prerogative, like finishing super early, just because the thing that I said earlier, where like a little hiccup here or there can cost you a lot down the road, even if you're not necessarily stopping at taking your time at every stop. Being pushed forward maybe 15 minutes in the morning can lead to maybe 30 minutes to an hour, or maybe even more later on in the day when there's traffic. Yes. So you do kind of want to finish as early as possible. So you will have a lot of truck drivers stopping to pee at porta potties. I love porta potties.
I feel that.
Yeah, because then you don't have to pee in your truck.
That's true.
Yeah, and that is what it is. And before we start, blaming Amazon too much, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to like defend Amazon, because I'm not. Yeah. But it's it does also have to do a lot with the fact that the customer expects certain things out of getting a delivery out of Amazon now. You know what I'm saying? They're willing to be nice to the drivers themselves, of course. Yeah. But, there is that expectation from Amazon. Yeah. Luckily, I don't have to deal with that anymore now that I work in the night shift, so I don't actually deliver to customers anymore. I deliver pallets to post offices, so it's all...
Oh, that's not bad. That's pretty easy.
It's all in the family.
Yeah, my brother works for UPS, so he's like, he used to work the night shift. I think he works the day shift, because I think the night shift is mainly just like cleaning and getting things prepped for the next day, right?
Yeah. It's that's like night shift for the post offices. That's pretty much it. And a lot of the packages, I guess, Amazon doesn't deliver. We just hand those off to USPS and UPS and whatnot, and that's all.
I feel like since the pandemic, like it definitely, like the one day shipping has gone away. Did you start before or after the pandemic?
I just started like a couple months ago.
Oh, so you just started?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because I don't know why. Because I feel like before like the pandemic, the one day shipping was a big thing, but I feel like they take it away. Like it hasn't really been. I feel like it's a lot slower now.
It's I think they have like sort of chilled out on the delivery times. And,
I think people haven't really noticed.
They haven't noticed because I don't think they Amazon really wants them to notice, because I think that stuff is because of the unions. I haven't really been following it that much. It only really came on my radar when, like, on the alternative news I follow, it showed up. And since I was working at Amazon, I just got the job at Amazon. Now that my ears perked up, like like what's actually going on over here. So it's that whole labor thing. I mean, I would talk more about it, but I didn't really look into it that much, especially since I don't really plan to be working for Amazon too long. I'm
planning your next move.
Yeah, planning a next move, planning another job. I'd rather have the timings for Amazon are kind of weird for me. Like the first delivering for the small packages, I'd be delivering like during the day, and that would cut way into like open mic times. And driving in the morning, that gives me enough time to do open mics, but I can't stay out that late because I gotta wake up and be at work at 5 in the morning. So now I do night shift, which is kind of cool because I can sleep during the day, do comedy, and then come to work. But I've underestimated how like connected my body is to the sun, I guess. It's getting really hard not sleeping at night. And I just want energy to do other things. Although the job itself is great, it's not that bad. I like driving the trucks and whatnot too. Nice. But
so all in all, it's an okay company to work for.
It's it's not as bad as any other large scale
like working for Walmart.
It's comparable to that. Like what really makes a difference is like the actual your like actual contact points, like the people that you actually work with and interact with on a day-to-day basis. And I kind of lucked out that a lot of those people are really cool. Yeah. A lot of the other drivers that I work with.
And Bottom Park is a really cool area. All that area, a lot of good people in that area.
Oh yeah, it's really simple, really easy. And once again, I worked in a large packages division, which has a lot less of a workload than the regular Amazon drivers do. So I had a lot less stress as well. Yeah, it's it's working for somebody else. As long as you're working for somebody else, there's always going to be a little bit of a sacrifice that you got to make, because you're providing a service to them, and if the service doesn't meet their requirements, then they have the right to seek their services from elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean you're representing that other person. I mean, I'm a small business owner, so I know what it's like having to like make sure like everything I do is a reflection off me, and it's making sure that like I have all my P's and Q's, and making sure like if anything, like especially like taxes or and mess one thing up. Like my parents are also business owners, and like my mom stressed to me is like, if I mess up one thing, then that's like 20 to 30 different families that are also affected as well.
Yeah, you start realizing why a lot of these little things that they do matter. And when you're working on and you also understand a little bit more about the power that you have as a person too. Yeah. Because you like for example as an employee. Yeah. For me, working at Amazon is not nearly as bad because the actual humans that I work for, not the corporation, but the humans, my supervisor, and the other drivers and whatnot, they're very nice, very accommodating, very helpful of each other, and of course I am as well. So that helps us work it out and do the work in a way that Amazon likes it.
It's a good workplace environment.
yes, it's a good workplace environment, and honestly, doing the work that, to Amazon standards, especially when we're all working at the same page like that, it doesn't really feel as bad either. It's a lot less stressful and whatnot.
Are there any perks working with Amazon? Like, do you get like faster shipping? You're like, oh, there's my package.
Not really. Not that I've noticed. I haven't really seen like, oh, you get. That would be kind of cool. Like if we got like a free Prime membership or something like that.
Yeah, but
nah.
That would be cool.
The thing is, yeah, it sucks because you're working not for like Amazon itself. You're working for a delivery service provider, which is a separate corporation that has contracted with Amazon.
Well, that makes more sense then because it's just a third party, so they actually have no real. I guess you could say their hands are wiped clean or whatever they do. It's kind of like there's a lot of clothing companies that like sublease a lot of what they do to other companies, and then those companies sublease to another company to like have child labor. So even though the company doesn't know that there's child labor, they're still using child labor.
Yes, that's a way in which like that kind of relationship is like can lead to like a negative thing, which is like child labor, of course. That's it's at the same time, like that, you can do it that way, where you use third party contracting and like they call it shell companies, where you have like you have your subsidiary company that's in China that's like another company, but it's owned by your own people. So it's really technically in house. And because they're at a different place with some different laws, and now you can screw the rules a little bit.
Go around things. I mean,
yes.
That's why a lot of people want like American built things, but American built things are gonna be a little bit more expensive, and it's hell of expensive living, especially here in LA.
That's true. But when you're just seeing supply chain issues and shit like that, like we've been seeing this year, so much more this year than other years, but like past couple years as well, it's now much more important that we actually start figuring out ways to produce things for ourselves.
That's true.
And
everything's like there's a whole bunch of things that are off the shelves, like computer chips. There's cars there aren't as many cars for sale, like new cars, used cars.
Yeah.
There's catalytic converters. I got my catalytic converter stolen in February, and motherfuckers, I still haven't gotten a call back. They said, we might give you a call back by Christmas. We'll see. So we'll see how it goes. Like stuff like that. Like there's little things and like little food stuff that comes from like China. Like there's I know in some countries they stopped exporting rice because they can't because they don't have enough for themselves. Yeah.
There's a lot of bubbles that are popping. A lot of things that are just coming to a head.
Do you think these things would have happened without COVID, or do you think COVID was because like COVID is such a huge like shift and changed the world?
Yes.
Like it changed everything that we did. Like it shut the world down for way longer than we thought it would ever.
Right. I don't know. Maybe there's some things that I think that would have happened.
Yeah, but it just sped up the process.
Yes. Either it's sped up the process or it like was the impetus that like caused the things to collapse.
Yeah.
Things were like already going bad, but it like
because like both things, like the airlines and the nurses. I mean, I was talking to this nurse the other day, and she was like, people were actually predicting that there was going to be a nursing shortage back in 2020, in 2024, but the only reason why it's happening now in 2022 is because COVID forced a lot more people to retire early than beforehand, and it actually also forced a lot. It actually pushed a lot of nurses out of the nursing field. So that's why like a lot of there's not only is like the overcrowding, but the fact that we don't have enough nurses is compounding the issue of COVID. I feel like the thing that it being a bad disease, it being the fact that there's less nurses, so and that adds up to like the less we don't have as much like supplies going around either.
Right. Right. That's exactly what it is. So many of those things. That nursing is a great example of things just getting really bad, and I think on the like health aspect too, like I think we're both guys in shorts and sandals with long hair in Los Angeles, so I think we have a little bit of an idea that maybe the way that we do health normally in this country isn't quite as great as it could be sometimes. So there's a lot of that too, like a lot of the way that a lot of what we eat, a lot of what we live in, a lot of what we use as medicine too is it's actually quite harmful to our bodies in the long term.
Yeah, livers, kidneys.
Yes, and I think that kind of damage like develops into the like population at large being more vulnerable to whatever COVID was.
Yeah, because I mean it did affect like your lungs, and then if you weren't in better shape, then you had weaker lungs.
Yes.
Typically, and so it attacked the lungs. So if you had weak lungs, and then you'd pretty much die.
Right.
That for most people, and I mean, there's other reasons why people die, but like the lungs is a big part of it. So a lot of people who were smokers, they had a lot of problems. Obviously, older folks had a lot of problems. But like stuff like that is just it's so hard to like control. But now that we have the vaccine, it's a little better now.
Right. It's like I don't want to get your
no go ahead
podcast like demonetized or something.
Don't worry, we're not even close to demonetization.
Yeah, that's true. We can't get demonetized if we're not monetized.
Amen. So go ahead, do whatever you want to do.
Well, fuck it. All right then.
Yeah.
It's the whole vaccine thing. Like everybody's like, oh, yes, we have a vaccine now, and now we're all like safe and whatnot. But really, the vaccine, although it was touted to do so much more than it did, it didn't really. A lot of people are still getting sick even though they're being vaccinated. A lot of people are still like.
Can I return that point right there about them being sick? Like, it's not about like when you get the when you get the flu shot every year. It's not about you not getting sick. It's about you when you get sick, your symptoms aren't as bad. So I take the same logic to COVID's vaccines. It's not that you're not going to get sick. It's that when you get sick, your symptoms aren't going to be as bad. You're not going to be, your bones aren't going to hurt as much. You're not going to be as, your fever won't be as high. You probably might just get the sweats, hopefully. So that's how I see the vaccine. Not that it's going to stop you from getting sick, but it's going to help you in reducing the effects that would happen otherwise.
I definitely hear a lot of people. A lot of people have been saying that to like make the. All right. Now I have to speak on this now that I brought it up. That point is it's kind of moot because you're.
Is it about getting sick or is it about dying?
It's not nearly. It's not really that. It's about like that thing that you're saying there is not necessarily speaking to the data itself of like people. First of all, like the if you think the vaccine is good for you, get it. If you don't think it's good for you, don't get it.
Yeah, personal choice.
But the other thing is that the way that the vaccine is trying to help you get better, or trying to protect you against the disease, it is not nearly as potent of a method protection as people think that it is.
Okay.
Right. So you getting an antibody for a virus. And then going into like what a virus itself actually is and how they actually express themselves and how they actually interact with your body. There's a lot to say about that as well before going to say that now that you're vaccinated against this particular virus, now you're safe from this disease.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more that goes into the disease than the virus itself. First of all, like a lot of people say that, and COVID kind of brought this conversation to a head a little bit too. Like this was one of the bubbles that popped, is that people talk about the disease and particularly the cause of disease in a very absolute way, as if we're very sure about how this happens, but we're really not. A lot of the people who, there's been a lot of doctors and medical researchers just across over the past century really that have been very critical of virology itself as a science. A lot of that stems from the fact that a lot of virology is built on a lot of like the disease investigational stuff, and the disease tracking stuff that's based on the polymerase chain reaction, the PCR technology, which even according to the inventor of the technology is not meant to be used for diagnostic purposes. And that's Dr. Kary Mullis, Karymules.
Okay.
He's also the doctor. He's also the guy who essentially theorized DNA on an LSD trip, and then discovered it actually.
Yeah.
So he discovered DNA, and then through his work with DNA, he also came up with this technology to. What that technology does is it replicates a little bit of DNA strand that you have.
Yes.
Right. So you pick out a DNA strand, and then you put that into a polymerase chain reaction, and then you basically double that, and then you do that reaction many thousand, many million times. Yeah. Many 10 to the whatever times.
Yeah.
And then you get a much longer chain. But what a lot of people think that does, or what mainstream doctors think that does, is that that will give you a representation of what genes are being expressed inside of the body as well. But a lot of people say that that's not actually representative of that at all. All you're doing is you're just extending that one little bit of DNA. And that has no relevance to the other little bits of DNA that are floating around inside your body. Right?
So like if I were to acknowledge it, like Earth has no real relevance to Mars in the sense that we're our own independent body, and it's its own independent body. So what happens here doesn't really have an effect on that.
I would describe it as this: if you took a human being, just one human being, off of the Earth, and you just cloned him, and just made a whole race of just that one human being, would that give you an accurate representation of all the other human beings
that's true.
On the planet?
Or if you just took two people and you clone those two people.
You don't really get those two. If you clone those two people, now let's say you clone one person by themselves to create a whole new human race of that one person, and then you clone a second person to create a whole different race of that one second person.
Yeah.
All right. Because you're started with two different people, you're gonna get a vastly different race of people.
Yeah.
Right. Like a whole race of me is gonna be a lot different than a whole race of you. I mean,
yeah.
Maybe not.
Namaste, my friend. Namaste. But yeah, I get that, and because it shouldn't be, it can't be, because the human DNA is so unpredictable. You can't predict it. You can't assume that it has a certain formula.
It's just what I'm saying. Like, one human being isn't necessarily representative of all the other human beings, right? So one piece of DNA, or even a few different pieces of DNA, isn't necessarily representative of all. That's why you have different like they tell you to get more than one test. They don't just test you one time. You got to get tested like 2-3 times to make sure that you're good, because one test. This is why, like, a lot of people were getting like, I got a negative result one day, then a positive result another day, and then a negative result another day.
It depends on how much is in there.
It's not. That's what I'm trying to say, is that it's not really speaking to how much of anything is in there. It's just speaking to, like, the particles that they chose for that reaction to happen, and what those particles express. It's not that those particles would necessarily express something that is relevant to the entire expression of your body itself. All right, even if you do like a few of those, for example, like if aliens go to a punk show and grab a few like green-haired people dressed
Mohawks.
dressed like Hunter Thompson, then you clone all those people into an entire race of punks dressed like Hunter S. Thompson, and you will get an entire race of people that are completely at odds with the whole human race. You know what I'm saying? So it does not necessarily, it could mean that, all right, yes, you do have an expression of these punks that look like Hunter S. Thompson in your body somewhere. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's all
the same.
That it's all that's happening in your body. You know what I'm saying? It's that one point, and then the implications of that one point, that this reaction that you have doesn't really tell you what's going on inside inside the body of the subject. I don't think people realize this. That kind of means that you can't really track disease the way that virologists claim to.
Yeah.
And so that. you can the way you can track disease is, of course, people are getting sick.
Yeah. You see, they have all the same symptoms.
Yes.
But then
even when you get into symptoms, how many different kind of diseases, and the reason why you have all these different kinds of diseases is because they're all supposed to be attributed to all these different pathogens.
Yeah,
right?
different mutations.
It's this bacteria, it's that virus, it's, but they may have largely the same symptom expressions. Although, sometimes some may be more intense than others, but they will have largely the same symptom expressions. So now, what is the disease? Is the disease the organism that's causing you to have those symptoms in the body, or is the disease those symptoms themselves? You know what I'm saying? Is the disease like what's actually happening to your body?
Well, I mean, different pathogens. There's different types, like a virus and a bacteria. Those are two different types of like diseases, because a bacteria is more of a germ, whereas virus is more of what's the best way of saying it? Virus is more like it's because you can if
let me ask you a couple questions. First of all, is a virus alive?
Yeah, well, yes, they're technically living organisms. Single cell organisms.
Well, we're talking a virus specifically, so not a bacteria, but a virus.
Yeah, they're living viruses.
So what constitutes a living thing?
I feel like this is an abortion portion right now. no, but what I'm saying is that is fair. That's fair. That's
all right. So here's where, like,
Not
to define it clearly.
Yeah.
A living thing, it first of all has to be like, it has to sustain itself, like it has to like be able to
reproduce,
get its own food, and then be able to process that food and to like regenerate itself and create more of itself to grow and heal. It also has waste coming out of that food, and then it also has has the ability to reproduce. And here's the thing. Although viruses are claimed to have this ability a certain ability to reproduce, that idea actually is a lot more open to interpretation than you may think.
Well, they need a host.
I
think that's the difference. Is viruses need a host.
Yeah, the idea, the mainstream explanation of what a virus is and how it works is that a virus is it's kind of a not quite alive, not quite dead kind of a thing. Here's the other thing. They say that viruses are what's called immotile. Like immobile, but instead of the B, there's a T. So what that means is that they don't have no ability to move on their own. Right? So aside, not quite immobile also kind of means that they're not able to move, but immobile can also be like moving but not of your own accord. Immotile means that you cannot cause your own self to move. If you're moving, it's other external things that are moving you,
like clams.
Yeah, kind of like clams. So but clams are, different. They like eat. They have waste. They, have like real like actual reproduction and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yes, like clams, they can't cause themselves to move. They're moved. Viruses are the same way. So what they say a virus does is the virus somehow gets into your body, even though it can't move.
Yeah.
Gets attached to a cell, and then it like is absorbed into it then injects its DNA into that its genetic information into that cell.
Yes.
And the cell then it tries to incorporate that piece of genetic information, and what that genetic information then causes the cell to do is to essentially destroy itself while creating more viruses.
Yes.
Right? That's really just one interpretation of the process. And you also have to understand a little bit about the way microscopy works, is that it's very hard to actually see that process happen live. Because to do any kind of electron microscopy, if you just do a Google image search and look at, of a virus, and you see, like I'll show you right now, you'll see a lot of things that look like what you commonly think are viruses, but they're not actually microscopic images.
Yeah.
They are artist renditions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So all of this stuff.
Yeah, those are all artist renditions because we can't really see them.
Yes. Now, if I show you
bacteria,
electron microscopy of a virus.
Oh yes.
That's a lot more like this.
Yeah, it's more smaller. It's like flat. It's like
it's way smaller. There's a lot more. Like you can't. You can kind of tell what that is.
Yes.
But if it's in a clear snapshot like this, where you have those like spiky balls and whatnot,
yes,
you can be like, oh shoot, that's a virus, and oh, that looks like they're attacking
those are receptors,
the cells and whatnot. Those are like the receptors and the bond like whatnot. But think about it this way. Like
if you find enough of those in the same amount of things and the same amount of people exhibiting the same amount of symptoms, you could logically conclude that that's the same thing, right?
Yes, you're getting into the idea of what's called the Koch's postulates.
Yes.
So the Koch's postulates are that to attribute one organism to a particular disease, you have to have these 4 postulates that are met. And let me look them up now because I want to make sure that I get them right.
No rush. It's like the most science we've been on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Most of the time we're talking about other things like, drugs and drinking and excessive things.
I mean, we can,
No, it's like I'm enjoying this right now.
Yeah, most of that is like I had a joint
on the way here.
On the way here by myself.
Oh, there you go.
And then I went home and I rolled up another one by myself. The other week was exciting. I rolled a blunt. And then I also smoked it by myself.
That sounds like a good time, though. Sounds like you enjoyed yourself.
Yes,
ain't nothing wrong with smoking by yourself.
Right.
Sometimes you need to just sit there, smoke, and just relax. So, what are the 4?
Yes. All right. So the number 1, the suspected causative agent must be absent from all healthy organisms, but present in all diseased organisms. And now we just know for a fact that that's, like, for example, with COVID.
Asymptomatic people?
There's, asymptomatic people, which is just people who are not sick. But, because a thing like what we call a virus, because it travels in the air, and the air is a fluid that is, first of all, especially where we are right now, it's all-encompassing. So, if there's air somewhere, there's going to be a little bit of leakage anywhere. So there's been a lot of a lot of the COVID virus found in a lot of healthy people's nasal passages. It's been and that's one of the things I was saying about the vaccine. That like people are still they're still susceptible to the pathogen, and then they're also spreading the pathogen as well. And then the other thing is that the expression of what we call COVID, the disease itself, what do you consider those symptoms to be? Like those...
the symptoms of COVID?
Yes.
Shortness of breath, lack of taste and smell, weakness, sometimes can be shivers. Yeah. But there's multiple other ones. Some people have
what's the most common one is that you have like a respiratory disease, right? You have lungs that are trying to purge, so you're coughing, you're sneezing, you have your sinuses that are moving. In general, you're going to have a lot of purging of your body, so you're probably going to have like gut issues as well, because you're trying to, depending on how intense that disease is.
Yes.
What's happening is that your body is trying to get something out of it, right? And this is the way that holistic doctors look at medicine, is that your body's trying to what is it that your body's actually trying to do right now? Because even mainstream doctors will tell you this point blank, is that the medicines themselves don't heal you. They stop the symptoms just enough that your body can heal itself, and it is your body that heals itself.
Yes, the lymphocytes.
Yes, well, it's not just like down to one thing. Of course, lymphocytes are one thing, but there's
your white blood cells, all that.
There's many different levels. Like each, like every organ in your body in its own way is kind of working for healing. Like your skin, for example, like there's a lot of stuff that comes out through your skin. Your skin is an avenue for waste removal. That's why you get pimples and stuff.
Yes.
That's it's why you sweat as well. One of the big things is that you're trying to get that the sweat also brings out. It's not just water and salt, but what kind of salt? A salt is just a metal and a non-metal, right? So you have a whole bunch of things coming out of your body, really, through that. But then your lungs are involved in that. Your stomach is involved in that. Like there's so many things that are involved in cleaning your body, in repairing your body, and what the symptoms that your body is showing tells you what exactly your body is trying to do to help it. And you can use that information to see like what does your body like actually need.
Yeah.
That's where the naturopaths will have more of a nutritional approach to treatment, whereas what I've been calling mainstream doctors this whole time, but they technically call allopathic doctors, which is, you know,
the pill pushers.
The pill pushers, but like allopathy comes from a lot of the products that they are selling you. The raw ingredients they come as byproducts of petroleum production. So the aloe is oil, so it's oil medicine essentially, allopathy. But what a lot of those now I forget my point.
The four.
See, Blaze is the one who's like actually yawning and trying to hide it. I am also wanting to yawn, but I can't because I'm actually talking. Anyway, shit.
I'm trying to hide it so that way you don't yawn, and the people over there don't yawn.
It's okay. This is one of those topics. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to work in a knock joke.
No, it is. Well, the funniest thing I was gonna say when you brought up the sweating, I didn't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll. Was one thing I loved about my 7th grade science teacher is she was like, remember kids, if you're one of those people that likes to drink your own sweat, you're basically drinking your own urine. That's basically what she said. Like, if you're drinking your sweat, you're drinking your urine.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's cool. That's pretty much what it is.
Speaking of urine, I just put my hand over here where your dog was sitting, and there is kind of a wet spot. I don't know what it was.
There's no wet spot. Yours is not cold? What?
Could just be cold.
It just feels cold. It's not wet.
I don't know. We live in a very frugal house. Even though we have air conditioner, we don't use it. So.
Not in this house. I have it. I use it. I pay the bills. The fuck? Yeah. This is what I go to work for. All right, so that's well, go back to the second one. What's the second?
Oh yeah.
You were still on the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's okay. Now I don't remember what I was talking about.
Okay, what was number 2?
So anyway, the causative agent must be isolated from the disease organism and grown in pure culture.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of people who, you know, say that has not been done with COVID, and there's a lot of people who say that has been done with COVID. Well, I say to that is that what you're doing is you're taking a little piece of you're first of all you're giving a toxic stimulus to one animal.
Yes.
And then because that animal has had a toxic stimulus, now that animal is going to get sick, which is trying to remove the toxic stimulus. All right, let's think about it now in just like what your body's actually trying to do kind of a way. All right, so you've introduced a toxic stimulus, and your body's trying to remove that toxic stimulus. And then your body is now also expressing these viruses and whatnot. And what you think is that you get those, you then take like a blood sample of that animal, and now it's going to have all these viruses and everything, right? But it doesn't just happen like that, right? First of all, when they get the original blood sample of the animal, they can't put that in an electron microscope just yet.
No.
That's just not how it works. What you have to do to it is you have to, first of all, you have to kill everything inside. And for that, you have to remember that what we're claiming is that the viruses destroy the cells, right? Meanwhile, just to be able to look at what you're trying to look at, you're putting your sample through a process which kills the biology that's inside it. Yes, and then you have to put all these various dyes and whatnot, which themselves independently, you know, all the research hasn't necessarily been done whether those dyes don't have any effect on the biology of the sample that you're looking at itself.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all this other stuff that you're doing. You're affecting the sample quite a lot before actually being able to look at it. So you have cells in there, and then you have cells that have died from some cause that you're looking at it now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many different causes that can be attributed to that those cells died for, or that those cells died because of.
Yeah.
That are not accounted for in the final results of the experiment. And that's where a lot of the issues lie with virology, is that there is too many like loose ends not tied up in there, and then there's a lot of different interpretations of like what's actually going on. Like one of the interpretations of what's going on is the virus is not actually like an organism that's invasive and trying to like destroy the cells to create more of itself. One of the interpretations is that the virus is actually an expression of the cell itself that has been exposed to an environmental toxin and is now having to essentially kill itself.
Mm-hmm.
But before it dies, it packages the genetic information related to its interaction with that environmental toxin and puts that in these little protein packages that we call viruses. They're protein packages encased in maybe some fats as well, but you know, you can call them different things. You can call them viruses, you can call them exosomes.
Mm-hmm.
But what's possible that they do is that they're not actually going and destroying the other cell. Is what they're doing is they're going and giving the other cell the information about this environmental toxin, and depending on what it is, the cell will either go through cytophagy, which is cell death on its own, or it will have like more information to be able to prepare itself for the environmental toxin, and then we'll go into like mitosis and we'll incorporate that bit of DNA going forward. But you can't see that if you're killing the sample. And then if you're killing the sample, then if the virus is part of the cell's own like kind of emergency procedure to like, you know, best help its own host, because the cell is a living thing amongst a whole bunch of other living things, right?
Yeah.
To survive. That's what the electron microscopy shows is not nearly as clear of a picture as people have drawn, like these 100% absolute conclusions.
Yeah, because remember, all those pictures of it are just drawn renditions.
Well, it's not just that those are renditions. What those renditions show the virus to be doing, what those demonstrations, what those the process that they're showing, that process itself, where people act like we've seen that process happen, and we know it happens like that always, and that is the part that is just not true. Because the technology that allows you to see these viruses, that doesn't work like that. You can only see a still image of the dead biology. And if you're saying that the virus is an expression of a dying cell to other cells, that, you know, I'm dying and this is why I'm dying, if your whole process to to isolate this disease or to isolate this virus or whatnot, if your process involves killing cells, then you're going to get these viruses creating these cells creating these what we call viruses.
Okay.
But they could be the the more exosome definition of it, which is the cell's expression of, Again, that's just one little.
Yeah, because you're gonna take a snapshot. It's not the whole picture. It's not a video. It's a snapshot.
What we're talking about here, this itself is just a snapshot and not nearly the whole picture, the whole conversation regarding like these different medical paradigms.
Yeah, I get you. Then what was the third part?
Because it's not just with viruses. There's a whole different interpretation of like how the interaction with bacteria and the human body as well. Like there was one time where we were like, no bacteria, we shouldn't have any, there's all germs, they're all going to kill us.
Yeah.
But now
we
know
we'd
that
all be dead.
Yes, if at the very least there's gut bacteria that break down our food for us, but then there's also skin flora but that's just the tip of the iceberg as well with that. But anyway,
we're staying primarily on viruses right now.
Yeah. The third postulate is the cultured agent must cause the same disease when inoculated into a healthy, susceptible organism.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to the first one, where the suspected causative agent must be absent in all healthy organisms, right? So it causes, first of all, there's just so many different expressions of what we call COVID itself, right? There's certain
mutations.
Not mutations. It's just even like in the one, before we had any mutations, before the Delta thing happened, people would just have very different ways of expressing how they got sick, besides just the shortness of breath and everything like that. Like, there's people who would have kidney issues, there's people who would not have kidney issues, there's people who would be affected way worse and not as badly either. And that although there was like just people who are unhealthy being more susceptible to a disease doesn't necessarily mean that those are different symptoms and shit. But if like so many people are they like will test positive but they don't have any symptoms, then it goes into this whole thing where if you don't have like good testing methods, which we don't, and even if like what you have to test those if like what the metrics that you're using for those testing methods, if the PCR test isn't necessarily as accurate in telling you that you have the disease, then how accurate was it in identifying the disease from the get-go that you're trying to, because they use the same PCR technology to try and isolate and figure out that this is the COVID virus.
But asymptomatic just means that it doesn't affect you the same, in the sense that like it's still the same virus, you see the same things in there, but that it's not as potent in other people. Right,
but then you still have like, so the whole negative and positive thing, you understand that that's like a sliding scale.
Yeah.
It's the percentage that you get, and then like based on that percentage, they say that you're positive or you're negative.
Yes.
Right. So if you have like healthy, you're gonna have healthy people that have a lot less of a percentage, then you also have healthy people that had more of a percentage too. So if you also have healthy people that have more of a percentage, then it's kind of like, oh, is this virus or is this disease really connected to that particular pathogen that you're identifying?
Yeah.
You know, and again, that just goes back to is that PCR test even testing for the actual cause of the disease?
Viruses affect the DNA and of a cell, and sometimes like certain cells have certain DNA types don't interact with certain other DNA types, because when you have like you said, the renditions is there's supposed to be certain there's an enzyme, and like you connect to it, so it connects to it and it binds to it, and if it fits, it fits, but some people don't have those receptors to bind with, and so those people are more carriers than they are diseased. You know what I mean?
Well, how would they then carry it if the virus can't bond?
It will still be in the system, but it can't bond to enough receptors to affect any real change. So it's like when you take a Tylenol, whatever.
Panadol.
But one of those. Yeah. When you take it, it has certain receptors. When it dissolves in it and it attaches to certain other receptors, and so that's how it's affected. And so, if you don't have enough receptors, then there's just free floating neurons in there, and then that's just all there are. They bind to as many as they can. But if there's more receptors, more bind. If there's not enough, less bind.
Let me ask you another question.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we consider evolution to be a thing, right? Which it is. You can see, like, on a smaller scale, you can see
dogs.
Things like changing and shit. I'm saying dogs for sure, but if viruses are so dangerous, then why do your cells have receptors for those things?
Well, it's not necessarily. It's not that those receptors are for those things specifically. It's those viruses mimic those receptors. In the sense is like, if you want to rob a bank, you might do something like you might pretend to be one of the security guards and mimic mimic them and get in there, or we might mimic being a teller. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And you get in there and you blah blah blah. I mean, just because you look like Mission Impossible. You know what I mean? Goes in there, he mimics the person and he infiltrates it, and like he takes the mask off, and it's like, oh, it's Tom Cruise.
Yeah. All right.
Stuff like that. What was the fourth one though? Before we finish up, I don't want to leave people on wondering what the fourth one is before we finish up.
For sure. All right. So the causative agent must then be re-isolated from the inoculated diseased organism.
Must be inoculated from. Repeat that one more time, please.
The same causative agent must then be re-isolated from the inoculated diseased organism.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that makes sense though.
That does make yes. If all the Cox postulates are met, then yes, it makes sense. But let's also remember then you have people who tested positive that were not sick, and then you also had people who a lot of times tested negative who were definitely sick, and maybe later on they tested positive, and then some.
I feel that's more of their defensiveness, the white blood cells. That's the white blood cells that work. Some people have stronger immune systems. I mean, people can have their immune systems weakened. Like if you're working.
No, we're talking about people who are sick, but are not testing positive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's like so many things that we think are just like true, or that we just assume are like facts about virology, but when you look at the processes behind those things and you critically assess how well those work, then it starts to become less concrete of a science. I'm not saying that they're not they're definitely doing a lot. They're definitely you can build as tall of a tower as you want.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're building it on shaky foundations, then it's going off in the, like, if you're building a road, for example,
mm-hmm.
right? And you start out, maybe in the beginning you weren't quite straight enough, but you kept going on that direction, right? You built a very long road, but because way back then you fucked up a little bit, you built a very long road that way, but you were supposed to go that way.
Yeah, you're 10 degrees off.
You're still, yes, which over the course of 10 miles can be a big distance.
Yeah, it could end up being like 200-mile difference because you're 10 degrees off.
Yeah. So that's what it is with virology and with chronic disease and like allopathic modern medicine is the most advances that we've seen with it, and like as great as it is, it is very good at trauma.
Yeah.
It's very good at, like, you got injured, you got your, like, bone broken or something like that, and because this kind of medicine is involved in cutting things out of you much more often, they're also really good at that too. And I'm not saying that there's no reason why you may not need that. You definitely, sometimes when a disease progresses too far, just to be able to do anything else, you need to make sure that the person stays alive. So you maybe need to cut open the person, and remove, like, a blockage or something like that, just so that person can have bodily function. And for those things, the modern medical system is really good, and it is, a lot of times very miraculous. But they fall short of, but they're not nearly as good at dealing with infectious disease and with chronic illness. Because a lot of that
it's
is
more
due
like
to
acute illnesses and acute trauma is where it's best at.
Yes.
Here
yes.
now. Okay.
But with the chronic illnesses and with infectious disease, it's not as great because it has has a big blind side on nutrition, because the commercial side of that medicine replaced a lot of the natural nutritional treatments with things that are maybe more potent or seem to be more potent.
Like morphine?
Yeah. But, like, the thing about what morphine does, though, it just
blocks pain receptors.
Just blocks pain receptors. It's not actually fixing anything in your body. And even though, that might, be really nice at first, those aren't. And morphine itself is just one of the many things, like, there's, like, for example, there are a lot of medicines that you will see, like, what they're being treated for, and their side effects, or their long-term side effects, will be that disease that you're trying to treat for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's been a long time since I've read this book. But, I wanted to say this, just in case anybody wants to look at, like, where I'm getting a lot of this information. And it's from a lot of different places. But the place that makes this argument, the book that makes this argument the best, is this one called What Really Makes You Ill. And it's a book written by these people were accountants, but when they had somebody in their family get cancer, and they did everything that the doctor told them to, and they died pretty quickly. But even though they maybe even got a little bit of a, maybe found the cancer a little, maybe they still had time, but they did everything that the doctor told them to, and that resulted in them dying.
Mm-hmm.
But then they had another person that they knew who was very old, who got cancer, and the doctor said that they had maybe 6 months to live, but she didn't do anything that the doctor said. She just stayed home and kind of went on with her life, but maybe changed up her diet or something like that. And she did live, and she went on to live for another 10 years before passing away of another cause, not the cancer. So that caused them to be curious, and they went out and they researched the cause of disease, for the next 10 years. And then they released this book, I think either right at the end of 2019 or right at the beginning of 2020.
Okay. It's a pretty new publication.
It's a pretty new publication. And they've looked at medical papers, doctors' journals, books that doctors have written across medical journals, statistics and everything throughout the past, as far back as they could go, really. Yeah. As much medical information as they could find to just see what really could be causing disease. And they put forth a pretty compelling argument that it's not really what we call germs that cause the disease. In fact, germs are part of the body's defense system against the disease, and they're actually they make the comparison a lot to if you're aliens coming down to look at a burning building, and you see all these firefighters around that burning building, and you just take a snapshot of that. You're just looking at a snapshot. You may be inclined to think that, maybe these firefighters are the cause of the fire, but really they're trying to put it out. You know what I'm saying? Let's say you don't know anything about water.
Or fire.
Right? But, you're just coming into a situation where you don't really know anything about, which, for humans in the early 20th century, the micro world was something that they knew nothing about at that point.
Still barely know.
Right. We still, don't know nearly enough about it. So, they went back all the way, really. And they also talk about this one guy. People think Louis Pasteur is the one who discovered bacteria, right? Yeah. But he actually plagiarized a lot of his work from another not as well connected and not as well known. He didn't really care about fame as much. Was much more in his laboratory working. This other French scientist named Antoine Béchamp. He discovered bacteria. He also discovered the processes of course, if you're discovering the processes of fermentation and putrefaction, then you're finding bacteria, because bacteria are the ones that cause fermentation and putrefaction. Yes. So he also found that bacteria are what's called saprotrophic, which means that bacteria only eat dead, they survive on dead organic matter. All right? So, their role in your body is to, you're eating something that's dead organic matter to break that down. That's food for them, and that breaks that down into nutrients for you and also waste. Yes. And that's their role in the body. And then when you have a bacterial infection, they're still saprotrophic. They're not going to come and start eating you because you're alive. They're coming and eating you because that part of you, that tissue, is already destroyed. It's already damaged. Yes. It's not that the bacteria itself damaged that tissue. They're coming to do cleanup so that your body can then rebuild that tissue. But you can't do that until the dead tissue is removed. Now, when you have what they call a bacterial infection, is when your tissue is dying at a very alarming rate, and then there's a lot of bacteria in there having to clean up. And the thing is, for the bacterial infection, bacteria dies in its own waste.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, all living things die in their own waste.
Yes.
Which is also an argument against the whole mask thing as well. But we'll keep it to one controversial topic per episode.
For today.
For today,
we got enough. We're already talking about viruses and how it affects and all this stuff. Yeah. But bacteria eating the body and eating the dead stuff.
Yeah, it's they're there trying to clean up the effects of something else that damaged your body, and they list a whole bunch of different environmental factors that could be causing disease. And at the very least, it's a very compelling read. I'm hoping I try, and if the conversation goes this way, I tell everybody about this book, and I'm hoping that I will actually talk to a doctor at some point. Not that I haven't
a real doctor.
A real doctor. Not that I haven't try to talk about this to people who are real doctors who've actually gone to medical school and shit like that. But some doctors will. There's a few people who will actually go and will test this information out, or not just this information, but any kind of information, because everybody's so busy with just living their lives.
They just assume it. They take it on face value. I was like, I guess it's true.
Yes, which is why I'm. A lot of people will throw around meta-analysis, and I'm like, okay, so you looked at all those different studies and you sort of just summarized those studies. You went in there, you try to judge the veracity of those studies, but did you first of all, did you even consider what the methods of the study were?
There's so many different things that go into it, and
a lot of that stuff will especially if they're looking at cleaner data, because that, especially scientific data, can be fudged a lot.
Yeah, you can change the numbers, make them. What depends. What is it you want to tell? What story do you want to tell with them?
Yes, and that happens a lot in any kind of science. I mean,
yes.
Medicine
Politics,
for sure.
Everything. It's X amount of people are in favor of this. But how much of them? What about how much of them really are in favor of this? Because you could make it screw instead of this. Because you could say, oh, I would rather have this instead of that, and it's but we're not talking about those two things. We're talking about something else. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's like when they say when you talk to Republicans about Medicare for all. And then there's a lot of people who will be for Medicare for all, but then you start talking to them about the tax schedules for Medicare for all, and then a lot of people don't support it.
Yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. But we're gonna start wrapping up this. We've been here for another about an hour.
I need to go pee too.
Yeah. Before we finish up, is anything you want to plug? Upcoming shows?
I'm a lazy fuck, so I don't have any upcoming shows yet, but I will be at some open mics. First of all, I will probably be at this open mic tonight. It's at 8 p.m. every other Friday night, so there will be one tonight.
Which
and
was
there
called?
Will be one next Friday, but the other Friday. That's called the Alley Cats open mic.
Alley Cats open mic. Where's that at?
That's at the Oracle Tavern.
Oh, it's in Sherman Oaks?
No, it's that's the Oak Tavern.
Oak Tavern, okay.
We're at the Oracle Tavern, and that's in downtown LA.
Oh, okay, cool.
And it's a really fun show. A lot of fun comedians hang out over there, and then also if you're in the OC, check out Tuesday nights at the Group Therapy Pub. A lot of my friends, Tuesday nights and Saturday nights, we're doing comedy. I'm not talking about viruses. If I talk about viruses at those venues, I will get kicked in the balls.
I mean, it's in Orange County. They might not. They might support you. Now when you look like you're about to bomb them.
The Mexican part of Orange County, not so much.
Yeah.
The white part of Orange County, they've gotten a little bit mellow on the whole bomb thing, and now are all bonding on taking the rights away from women. Yes.
That was great. That was great. All right.
That,
Thank you for coming. All right, I'll take